We're on the front struts now, and I'm really having a kind of a devil of a time here. There's a flap. All right, let's go ahead and show it. You can lift up there. It's hard to get to, but it's there. There's the nut that we're trying to get onto. There. That one right there. It's hard to see, hard to get to. I have lifted both up on the entire, as you can see, I'm jacked up on the wheel, or not the wheel, but the A-arm on the truck there. We're not actually on the frame anymore. I have tried on with just jack stands on the frame and the wheel hanging down loose. Can't get to it. Can't hardly get a set of pliers on the through the springs to grab a hold of the strut central arm there. I've had an air hammer on the top trying to get onto the top of the strut right down there. Touch it, that's it right there. It's not budging. Getting dangerously close to the point of pulling out a torch just to try to cut it off. But what I'm going to do instead is actually try. I just hammered this impact socket on one of the bolts. This one's already, nuts is already out, sorry. This one's about to come out as soon as I hammer it out. Air hammer it out. And maybe if I drop down the strut and expose more of the bar up on top, I can get that part of that main arm. I can get on it with maybe a couple of wrenches and then it won't spin. But that's the problem with the struts, is getting onto that nut on top. You don't really have a good side access to it. On a 2500 series, I've seen some front wheel drives, they have much better access to that strut. But this one, no great way to get to it. Unless maybe by luck, if I drop this down further, I can get more in between the springs here in terms of just the main rod that goes through the strut to grab on, maybe with a couple of wrenches, a couple of vice grips. And if the couple of vice grips hold it tight, maybe it won't spin and I can get that nut off the top. But boy, this has been pretty tough so far. Well, it wasn't pretty, but you took a mighty Sawzall, poked it through that hole right there, and was able, by lowering the arm down to just the right height, was able to poke that saw blade through there and cut that off the top. So I should be able to pull the front strut down through the hole now that it's been separated. Ugly, but off. Victory. Just took the 2 bolts off the bottom. Came right up. Not easy though. Sure would not want to have had to done that with a hand hacksaw or something like that. Could have been here for a very long time. Hands down the clear winner for taking off front struts on the 1500 Suburban. Get a Sawzall with a metal cutting blade on the front of it. Stab it through that little window hole there in the suspension arm, and you can have that baby off in about a minute. No fuss. I should also offer it's hell on a blade, but whatever. It was looking pretty grim otherwise. You have to, if you can see, you have to raise that arm up and down to get it just right where you can get it in. That blade, and that's a really wide one there, did make it through and could get right underneath that rusted stuck bolt there. So it can be done. It's a little rough on the blade, but whatever. Just wanted to show that when we go to put it back in there, cupped part goes facing up. Just a little extra shoulder on this one here for getting into that cupped area. You'll lift the whole thing up through the middle of the spring, and then put your bolts back through there, and then lastly from the top, put your rubber and your cap back on top of it. Snug it down from the top. I'm doing that by hand because it is not, that nut is not going to be working its way up and off of there. It doesn't. You just have to snug this down to where it's sandwiched nice and tight. I would not recommend putting a impact wrench or something like that on there, because all you're going to do is just over squish these rubber bushings.